Okay, looks like we are recording. Yo, what is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless wonder, the man, Lincoln Clay, coming back at you with a little video that I thought was necessary to put out because, as a lot of you guys know, this week, the hot topic of this week was Phil Spencer saying that VR would not be coming to Scarlett because no one is asking for it. And, there's been, countless people have put out videos and put out stats, put out articles, put out videos debunking all of that. Because Phil Spencer himself, was on stage at E3 in 2017 promising high fidelity VR. I think even earlier this year, he touted the possibility of VR coming to Scarlett. And so when he said that that's not a focus for Scarlett because no one's asking for it, it actually sent some people into an uproar, regardless of what side they might have been on, whether it would have been the Xbox side or the PlayStation side. And it's been proven time and time again by me and my VR brothers that VR is on the rise and that there is money in VR. So I think Microsoft would have made money if they would have got involved in VR. So, VR is getting ready to turn into a mountain of gold. So you would wonder, why wouldn't Microsoft get on board with this? So, excuse me. My original thought, because the Xbox One X, I believe, came out in December of 2017. And high fidelity VR was supposed to be a part of that. And it didn't happen. And as far as that situation goes, Phil Spencer and Microsoft pretty much went radio silent and didn't, and just steered away from that subject. And my original thought was that they backed out of VR because of how slow Sony got out the blocks with VR, because Sony did really get off to a slow start with VR. But I think after about 10 months, I think the first reported numbers came in on the PlayStation VR, which at the time they had sold 750,000 units, which at the time was still more than the Oculus Rift and the HTC combined. So VR was growing, but I thought maybe it wasn't growing at the pace that Microsoft would like to see it grow in order for them to get on board with it. So my original thought, and this has been my whole thought up until 5 minutes ago, which most of it is still true, is that Microsoft doesn't get on board with something until they see a gold mine. And until they see everybody going into that gold mine with their picks and shovels, and when they see people walking out with wheelbarrows full of gold, then they decide to jump in it. That's what I thought this situation was. Because for all the stuff that people try to criticize the PlayStation on, I think the last reported numbers on the PlayStation VR in terms of headsets sold was 4.2 million, which I think was almost a year ago that we got those numbers. So they got to be somewhere around 5 million by now, give or take. And JTech TV even sent me, he even showed me a link on Amazon that the upcoming PlayStation VR bundles for Black Friday, where you get the headset and 5 games, was sold out on Amazon. So there was other bundles that were available on Amazon, but they were marked up, for $260, $290. But the $200 bundle was sold out. So my thought process was, there's one of the many proofs that VR is on the rise and that there is a demand for VR. When Amazon sells out on it, and I think Sony's going to move a lot of those headsets, move a lot of those bundles. So But going back to the numbers, as I was about to say before I got off track a little bit, um, I think it was sometime earlier this year. I think it was reported that Sony had like grossed over $2 billion on VR alone, not the gaming division, just VR. So I'd imagine that comes from the sale of headsets as well as software. And $2 billion is Microsoft's kind of money, the kind of money that's music to Microsoft's ears. So my thought process was that when next generation comes around, before Oculus jumped into the mix and kind of shook things up, after Facebook acquired them, I thought the next generation was basically Sony's to lose in terms of the VR landscape goes, because we're going to get a more powerful console. I don't know how long, I don't know how far down the line it is going to happen, but a lot of us believe that we're going to get another headset from Sony, and Sony was going to rule the VR landscape. Because and Sony did promise bigger and better experiences in VR, and I take them at their word that we're going to get it. And Microsoft has to know about that. Microsoft has to know that Sony's going to make another boatload of money off of VR the next generation. So my thought process was that Microsoft wasn't just going to sit back and let that money train go right by, and let Sony make another $2, $3, $4 billion off of VR. And so, and even Sick Humor posted a stat on Twitter that said, I think VR and AR combined made like over $12 billion, and it's expected to make over $20 billion next year. So if nobody's asking for VR, how is it that it's making that kind of money? And I've said it before, that even if VR never makes it mainstream, it'll never die, because every year at these electronic shows where people try to show off the latest tech, VR or AR is always at the forefront. Every year it seems like somebody gets closer and closer to showing us some kind of AR glasses that's able to do way more stuff than the previous iteration. So it's going to make money, no question about it. So when Phil Spencer came out with that announcement that they're not focusing on VR because nobody's asking for it, I was like, there's something underneath that going on. There's something behind closed doors that we don't know about. And we talked about this on the roundtable on Tuesday. And at the time that we were talking about it, some of us believe that that a big reason why that didn't happen was because of the money. And I'll even mention, Thrash's name. He believed that the reason why it didn't happen on the Xbox One X or even now is because of how the way the money was going to be split up. When you have to factor in that they had a partnership with Oculus, the money's got to be split between Microsoft and Oculus, along with developers who may bring their games over to the Xbox One X and Scarlett for that matter. And the money was probably going to be split up in such a way that somebody didn't agree with it, and maybe that's why it didn't happen, which I thought made a lot of sense. Other thoughts, as far as the Scarlett goes, other thoughts that went through my head was that Microsoft probably decided not to focus on VR for Scarlett, probably because they know Scarlett isn't going to sell. So if the console's not going to sell, then they definitely not going to be able to sell any headsets on it. And that could play a part. That theory is still in play. But still, I still thought that, again, when it comes to Sony possibly making $2 billion and them just watching that money go by. And the crazy part about me, with Microsoft having this partnership with Oculus, I felt like, we know Microsoft was not going to develop a headset, and Microsoft was not going to put out any first-party games for VR. because their current flat screen exclusives are lackluster. Oh my god, just a minute. Shut this thing off. All right, hopefully that shut the thing off. Yeah, that worked. That shut it off. So look at the kind of games that Microsoft is rolling out for the future. These bootleg games that fill up on Game Pass. So we know that if they were going to make that kind of game for flat screen gamers in order to fill out this subscription based thing, that we know they weren't going to put out any kind of games for for VR. But they didn't have to, because I kept trying to beat that into people's head that Microsoft must have had something in place on the Xbox One X. If they had a partnership with Oculus, there must have been something in place on that console that would allowed it to run VR. And I believe it. I believe it's still there. I mean, because this isn't something, I don't think this is something you can just do overnight and like, oh, you want to put VR on there? All right, let's make a deal. All right, go ahead and plug the Oculus in there. No, whatever architect might be in that console that would allow it to play VR had to be put in there years ago. And for Microsoft to just pull the plug on it out of nowhere, there had to be a reason why. And again, my original reason for believing that was because the PlayStation VR got off to a slow start. But I was just a guest on Craig Harris's podcast, and I gave those same theories for the most part as to why I believe it wasn't going to happen. But I did believe that even though Microsoft said that they're not focusing on VR for Scarlett, I do believe that they still left the door open. Here's why. Let me show you guys something real quick. Okay, so you guys are looking at these headsets above me, right? The headset directly above me is the Oculus. That is the Oculus Rift CV1. That was a headset that was being used by Oculus at the time that they struck the deal with Microsoft. That headset uses a HDMI cable along with a USB 3 plug, USB 3 cord, and the headset comes standard with two, external sensors. So most of you guys know what an HDMI plug looks like, but I'll show you guys anyway. That's an HDMI plug right there. Now, the current headset that's being used by Oculus right now is the Oculus Rift S, and that came out earlier this year, like back around May. This one is a lot easier and a lot simple to set up than the CV1. It uses a display port, a display plug that you plug into a display port, and a USB 3 plug. So for the CV1, you were going to need an HDMI cable, and which naturally came with the headset, but you were going to need the HDMI cable, or to put it in a different sense, you were going to need an HDMI port and a minimum of 3 USB 3 ports. And you would need a fourth one if you plan to add a third sensor. So most people know what a USB plug looks like. So back to the Rift S. That is the one to the right that has the two controllers in the top upper right hand corner. That is the Oculus Rift S. That is the headset that is the current PC headset that Oculus is using right now. That uses a display port, a display plug, and this is a display plug right here. So I want to show you guys the difference between an HDMI cord, which is that right there, and a display. You can see, yeah, you should be able to see the difference between them. So anyway, my thought process was, as far as Scarlett goes, the door still has to be open for Microsoft to be able to just flip the switch and let Oculus come in there and set up camp. So I felt like the telltale way to see if there's something still in place between Oculus and Microsoft is when Scarlett comes out. If you look on the console and you see a port for this display plug right here, if you see a display port in the back of that console, that means the option is still open for them to bring the headset over to Scarlett. And that's what triggered the new theory that I came up with. So the reason why I think Microsoft did not go through with VR for the Xbox One X, and why they are not going to go through with VR for Scarlett, is because Oculus is moving too fast for them. There would not have been any longevity for VR on the Xbox One X, and if my theory is correct, there will not be any longevity for VR on Scarlett. Now here's why. So all three of these headsets that I'm showing you is connected to why Microsoft is not going to do VR on the Xbox platform, because I do believe that they're interested in it. As a matter of fact, you guys probably know about the Microsoft Flight Simulator game that they showed at XO19, I believe. And that game looked gorgeous. I'm not going to lie. I even read an article where people who played the game said the game was so photorealistic and the map was so real-world accurate that they were able to see their own apartments flying above their own apartments on the game. And I have no interest in that game, but I definitely would be interested in that game if it came to VR. So I just read an article that I guess somebody asked the development team on Twitter if they plan to bring VR to Microsoft's Flight Simulator. And they responded by saying that bringing VR to the Flight Simulator game is very, very high on their priority list. So again, hey, so much, again, another piece of proof that, yes, people are asking for VR. So now I'm going to break this down by, the past, the present, and the future, why I think Microsoft is not bringing VR to the Xbox format. So let's go back. Now, Phil Spencer introduced the Xbox One X on E3 2017, which I think E3 happened in June of 2017. So Phil Spencer introduced, he announced a partnership between Microsoft and Oculus to bring high fidelity VR to the Xbox One X. And at the time that Phil Spencer made the announcement, the Oculus Rift CV1, the headset above me with the headphones on it, that was the headset that was being used at the time. That headset is now discontinued. That headset, if I'm not mistaken, came out in 2016, and it was discontinued this year when the Oculus Rift S came out. The headset this in the upper right hand corner. So it would have made no sense to bring the Oculus Rift CV1 to the Xbox One X if the headset was going to be discontinued in a couple of years. Phil Spencer had to know that. And so when it came time for them to make the decision not to bring it to the Xbox One X, it made sense now that I stop and think about it. If you discontinue the headset, if Oculus discontinues the headset after a couple of years, then you obviously can't get people to buy that headset to play on the Xbox One X. Therefore, the only people that you can sell software to would be the ones that already have a headset on the platform. The chances of gaining potential new customers are gone because the headset is continued. That explains why Oculus not marked the price down to $350. When I bought my Oculus Rift CV1, I bought it on sale for $350, and I thought that was a sale price. And I decided to jump on it because I figured in a couple of maybe in a couple of weeks it was probably going to go back up to $400. Well, I didn't realize it until after the Oculus Rift came out that the CV1 was discontinued, and Oculus did not tell anyone that they were discontinuing the CV1, because if they would have announced that they were discontinuing the CV1, nobody would have bought it, even with it being on sale for $350. Because if I would have known that, I wouldn't have bought it. I would have waited until the Rift S came out, and then I would have bought that. So they got me twice. I paid $350 for the CV1, and I paid $400 for the Rift S. That's why it did not come to the Xbox One X, I believe, because Phil Spencer knew that the Rift S was coming and that Oculus was going to discontinue the CV1. And I think he steered clear of answering that question because he had not prepared an excuse yet. So he just evaded the subject altogether. So now, Scarlett, I think earlier this year, in an interview, once again, Phil Spencer mentioned that they were exploring all possibilities, including VR. So why would you mention that if you don't have something in place on Scarlett that's going to make it VR compatible? There must be something in place. And that's why I had brought up the possibility of this display cord. My belief is that there's probably going to be a display port on the Scarlett just in case they do decide to go ahead and make something happen with Oculus. But I believe that the reason why VR is not coming to the Scarlett is for the same reason that it did not come to the Xbox One X, because the Oculus Rift S is probably going to be discontinued in a couple of years. Why? Because of this final headset right here, the Oculus Quest in the bottom right hand corner. The Oculus Quest is their mobile VR headset. Not so much because it's going to be, not because of whether anybody thinks it's going to be the future of VR. But here's the thing that just came out though. Now let me find my other cord. Just recently, Oculus rolled out their beta program for what's called the Oculus Link. And what that's going to do is allow you to use a specific cable, this USB 3. This is USB-C. USB-C on one end, USB 3 on the other. Now, a USB 3, you see where that white is right there in the plug? USB 3 is actually blue in there. So, in any case, this Oculus Link cable allows you to plug the Oculus Quest into a PC and basically turn it into an Oculus Rift S. So once that happened, a lot of people started being concerned about the Oculus Rift S. A lot of people are feeling like it's not a matter of when, not a matter of if, but when Oculus discontinues the Oculus Rift S. Because from what I'm hearing about the beta, about the Oculus Link beta, they're saying that the graphics, the fidelity and the graphics and all that stuff is almost as clear as the Rift S. They're saying that it's better than the CV1, but it's not as good as the Rift S. It's in between, but it's good enough. And they're saying that the latency is almost unnoticeable, and that the tracking on the controllers is terrific. So that's got a lot of people concerned that that the Rift S is going to be killed off. Because honestly speaking, if someone has a PC and they want to come to me and ask me, what headset do you recommend? Depending on what they needs are, I might recommend the Oculus Quest, because they can take the headset with them on the go and play it anywhere. But when they get home, they can plug it into the PC and it turns into a PC tethered headset, giving you PC performance and PC quality. So in other words, this is a full-blown Nintendo Switch. When you take the headset with you, it's like undocking it and just taking the screen and the controllers with you. When you get back home and you dock that headset, and you dock the Nintendo Switch into the dock, then it basically becomes a home console. Same thing here. This is a mobile VR unit, and when you plug it into a PC, it becomes a tethered PC headset with PC performance and PC quality. Because of that, a lot of people feel that the days are numbered on the Oculus Rift S. And Phil Spencer, once again, probably knows it. He probably does not see any sense in bringing the Oculus Rift S to the Scarlett platform, knowing that it's probably going to be killed off in a couple of years. And I think the reason why he said that nobody's asking for it is because he does not want to. He does not want to spill the beans on Oculus that they could be conceivably discontinuing the Oculus Rift S in a couple of years. So if they were to bring a headset to Scarlett, if they were to bring the Oculus Rift S to Scarlett, you only got about a 2-year window to get as much monetization as you can off of this platform, because a headset could conceivably be discontinued in a couple of years. In a couple of years, if this headset is continued, and they go all out with the Oculus Quest, the only people you are going to be able to reach on Scarlett in terms of VR software sales are the people that already have a headset, that are already on the platform. You won't get any new customers because the headset could conceivably be discontinued. I think that's what happened with the CV1 on the Xbox One X, and I think that's what we might be staring at with Scarlett. And I think, and that's definitely a concern amongst the VR people. If you go to the VR channels, and just about every person that has a VR-centric channel at one point or another made a video explaining that they think that the Oculus Rift S could eventually be killed off because of what the Oculus Link turns the Oculus Quest into a 2-in-1 VR headset. So Microsoft is looking to play the long game. Even when Scarlett comes out, they're still going to be supporting the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X for years to come. But you wouldn't be able to make any money off of it VR-wise, except for the people that are already on the platform. And we've seen how they don't really buy games. And then, Scarlett coming up. They're already going to be fighting an uphill battle. They already know that. They already know that Scarlett is not going to sell very well because they're still continuing to show that they're going to have lackluster exclusives other than your normal Halo, Gears, and Forza. And they do not plan to make any VR games themselves. So after a couple of years, the pipeline is going to be snapped. And the only people you're going to be able to reach with VR software are the ones that already would have been on Scarlett with a VR headset. And Microsoft is looking to play the long game. I do believe that Scarlett is probably going to be Microsoft's last full-blown console, and I'm sure Microsoft is going to want to support this console for as long as possible. I don't think this is a console that Microsoft is going to be done with after 5 or 6 years. I think Microsoft is going to try to make this thing go as long as they can with it, especially if this console has the ability to connect, to run games from xCloud, to be able to do cloud-based gaming as well. So with that being said, I do believe that there was no longevity in VR because of the moves that Oculus are making. They ran the CV1 from 2016, and they discontinued it this year. The Oculus Rift S came out I believe in February of this year, and a lot of people think it will be dead in a couple of years. A lot of people think it'll be dead by 2020, 2021, 2022, and that the Oculus Quest is going to be Oculus's focus moving forward. Now, it sounds like it might be a simple fix where you can just have people buy an Oculus Quest, buy the link cable, and plug it into Scarlett. But that might be asking a lot of customers to tell them that they need to buy an Oculus Quest for $400 and then buy the high fidelity Oculus link cable that they're going to be coming out with that's going to retail for an estimated $80. So I think that's why this is not happening. And if this is the case, I don't blame Phil Spencer for not supporting VR on the Xbox platform. Because if they would have put the if they would have put VR if they would have put the CV1 on the Xbox One X, and then you no longer have support after a couple of years, after 2019, I think you might have had some angry customers letting them know that if you wanted to continue to play VR going forward with Scarlett, that you're going to have to buy the current Oculus Rift S, which could conceivably again be discontinued in a couple of years. And then you're going to have another situation where customers are going to be pissed if they have to be told that you got to buy a third headset for $400 plus the cable that goes with it for almost another $100. That is too much money to ask people to invest in, to invest in this ecosystem. It would have been $400 for the CV1 if it would have happened when Microsoft said it was going to happen on the Xbox One X. So $400 there, $400 for the Rift S, and then $400 for the Quest plus another $80 for that cable. So if this theory is correct, I can't believe that I didn't come up with this theory sooner, because all I saw was the dollar signs and how greedy Microsoft is. So yes, the money is still a part of it, but because of the direction that Oculus is moving, they are moving too fast for Microsoft to have a long-term plan in place to support VR. So that is why I believe Phil Spencer made the right move not to support VR. And then, you can say, well, go with another VR headset. Who are you going to go with? There's nobody else you can go with, because Sony has their own platform. They got their own games. They're manufacturing their own headsets, and that definitely is not coming to Xbox. So that only leaves Oculus. They are the only other manufacturer of a VR headset that has a game library. There's other headsets out there like the Samsung Odyssey, which was actually made from the Microsoft design, because Microsoft designed it, the mixed reality technology, and then they licensed the headset out to third parties. Thus, you have the Samsung Odyssey and maybe even the HP Reverb, because those are two mixed reality headsets. But they don't have any games, Not only that, the HP Reverb is pretty much been designed for business use, to be used in board meetings and that kind of stuff. And then the Samsung Odyssey, I don't know what the purpose of that was, but it's definitely limited in what you can do because of the horrible tracking. And then there's a lot of games that are not supported by the Samsung Odyssey, so you definitely couldn't have brought those headsets to the Xbox platform, because there wouldn't have been any games for it. Now remember, Microsoft isn't going to make any of their own games, so they had to get somebody that had their own headset and their own library, and there's only two people that have their own headset and their own library. That is Oculus and Sony. But Oculus is moving too fast for VR to be supported long term on the Xbox platform. With that being said, then I don't blame Phil Spencer on pulling a plug on VR. So, I was thinking about my own selfish needs, because you guys heard me say it, that I wanted big AAA publishers to get on board with VR. In order for that to happen, we need as many players on the ball field as possible. So if we could have got Microsoft to support VR, that would have went a long way in developers like EA, 2K, Activision. That would have went a long way in getting those publishers to take a look at VR, because Bethesda's already invested in VR, and I think they're going to stay invested in VR because of the double dipping methods. They're charging people for the game and then charging them for it again when it comes out on VR. Which, those three publishers that I mentioned, Activision, EA, and 2K, all could have done the same thing. But right now, they got the same mindset that I believe Microsoft has, that they looking at big dollars, like billions of dollars, and they're not going to get involved in VR unless there's billions of dollars to be made. And in order for that to happen, we needed as many people to support VR as possible. So if Microsoft would have supported VR, I do believe that we would have got games like Madden, 2K, fully playable in VR. But in the current state right now, no, it's not going to happen. There's not a ton of VR headsets out there, and I think the limitations of the PS4 would have made it an impossible. It would have made it a venture that would not have paid off, because you would have had to make the game for PC owners, which there's not a lot of PC headsets out there, and then you would have had to seriously dilute the game in order for the game to run on the PlayStation. I mean, look no further than games like Ace Combat 7. The game has amazing graphics, but the VR missions don't have that good of graphics. In my opinion, they have PS3 type graphics. So that tells you the limitations of the hardware. So it's so because of all of that, that was my thought process. I thought if Microsoft gets on board, which I thought they would because they seen the $2 billion that Sony made, and then once those publishers see that Microsoft is on board, that gives them another revenue stream to possibly make money, and then they probably would have got on board, because Ubisoft supports VR. So I get it now. Microsoft was looking at the big picture, and it looks like Oculus is moving at a 2-3 year interval where every couple of years they're making a major move, and that I don't think that would have been good in the long term for Microsoft. So with that being said, again, I don't blame Phil Spencer for pulling the plug on the VR venture on the Xbox One X and Xbox Scarlett. And a lot of people who subscribe to my channel know how I feel about Phil Spencer. And I would be the last person on this earth to ever defend Phil. But this time, I believe he made the right move. So, it kind of hurts my heart to say that because I still want to see VR make it to the mainstream. But for the long term, based on at the pace that Oculus is moving, this would not have been a good move for Xbox to partner up with Oculus and bring VR to the Xbox platform. Now, if Microsoft would have been able to strike a deal with Sony, that'd probably be a different story because I think whatever iteration of headset that Sony comes out with next, they're going to support it for years to come. So, but hey, I get it now. I guess I really can't believe that I didn't put this whole puzzle together sooner. But, it is what it is, but VR is going to go on. VR is going to be just fine. The Half-Life Alyx trailer, over a 24-hour period, the video got over 10 million views. So there's definitely a very high amount of interest in VR. So VR is going to continue to be fine. VR is going to continue to be profitable. Entities like Oculus and Sony, and now I believe Valve are going to continue to support VR, and I think we're going to continue to get some tremendous games. I think VR is going to continue to move forward, and we're going to continue to get experiences that we've never seen before in VR. So, looking at the big picture, it's still a little bit disappointing that Microsoft didn't get involved with VR, but now I understand. So with that being said, that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys think. Because it's already been debunked that people are not asking for VR. It's been proven over and over again through various articles, stats, interviews, what have you. The VR is on the rise. There is an interest in it. It is profitable. But now I believe that Phil Spencer, he basically tried not to spill the beans on Oculus, and that's why he gave the evasive answer that he did. So it is what it is. I understand. I still don't necessarily care for Phil Spencer, but this is one time where I got to take his side and understand why he's making the decision that he's making. So again, people, I would love to know what you guys think. So definitely, put your opinions in the comments. You know, and I don't really get overwhelmed with comments, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to respond to everybody. It just may not happen immediately because of work and all that kind of crap. But I'll do my best to respond to everybody because I definitely want to know what everyone thinks. So with that being said, I'm gonna get ready to boogie on out of here. I think I'm gonna shoot the Walmart and do some Black Friday window shopping and see if anything falls in my lap for Black Friday. That's gonna do it for me, folks. Thanks for watching. I will holler at y'all later. Y'all, I'm sure I'll do some kind of stream, whether it's recorded, you know, or do it live on Twitch. I'm sure I'll do something. So keep your eyes peeled. That's gonna do it for me. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one. I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces.